Your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame. Everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame, and the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out, Lord. My soul cries out, everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame, and the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out, Lord. My soul cries out, everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame, and the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out, Lord. My soul cries out from the inside out, Lord. My soul cries out to you, and you're my strength and shield. To you my spirit yields. You're my heart's desire. I long to worship you. You're my strength and shield. To you my spirit yield. You're my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You're my strength and shield. You my spirit yield. You're my
So you can go with me if you want to the first book of the New Testament, Matthew chapter 2. I'll be there in just a second. The wise men, we say that there was three because there's three gifts that are represented. We don't know how many there were. We really don't know how many there were. In fact, we don't know how many or what age. And quite honestly, they could have been called the wise men. They're also known as the three kings, or they're called as the magi. So however you break that down, more than likely they had an entourage of some sort traveling with them. But we don't know. We don't know exactly where they came from. We know from the description that we will see in Matthew's account that they came from probably modern day Iraq or Iran or southern Turkey, possibly northern Syria, but from the eastern areas. And we assume that they were mature because we called them the wise men or the kings or the magi. But we really don't know. They could have been elderly. We don't know. They could have been young men. We don't know. We don't know if they knew one another. In my little mind, that growing up and hearing Christmas stories, I just figured they met at the local Walmart store and took off, and instead of carpool, they car-cameled across the desert, because we see them on camels. And that would be a safe assumption, but we don't know that they came on camel. They could have came by foot. We don't know if they all saw the star independently and somehow God brought them together as they came. We do not know. Regardless of how many there were, regardless of how old they were, one thing that we do know, it got King Herod's attention. Something else that we know, they came with expectation and preparation. They came with expectation and preparation. They were motivated to find the King of the Jews or the King of mankind. Now you'll remember that they brought gold. Gold is usually associated with kings. They brought frankincense, which is sometimes used in worship as a type of incense, as you would have saw in the temple of the Old Testament. They brought myrrh, which is a perfume that is usually put on bodies that are dead, understanding that this would be a sacrifice. So with that being in mind, we're going to pick up in Matthew chapter 2. And it says, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." Now notice they identify the star as being his star, not a star, his star. They also immediately recognize its deity because they say, "We have come to worship him." Now notice they knew it was a him, a king, and that the star was specific to it. Verse 3, King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and the teachers of religious law and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." And then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men. And he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. So he begins to set up a timeline. He wants to know how old this child is. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child, very important, it's no longer called a baby, child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy, and they entered the house. Now, I'm sorry to inform you, we have a couple of nativity scenes out front, and it has the wise men there. And that's traditional. It's part of the Christmas story. I have no problem with the nativity scene. They're part of the story, but they did not arrive at the manger. They arrived later. The scripture says it's not a baby now, it's a child. They're no longer in a manger, they are at a house. Now we're going to see in just a second where Jesus at this point in time, we do not know how old he is, but he is more than likely a toddler at this point. He went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was, and when he saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed and worshiped him. Again, instant recognition. They didn't have to go in and verify, was this the one we've been searching for? Instant recognition. Then they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route. For God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. In other words, their lives were already in danger. Verse 13. After the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Now, Joseph's getting into this, the angel appearing to him in a dream, because that's how he learns about Mary being pregnant, and it's okay. So, he learned when the angel appears and the angel talks, buddy, you better listen. Okay? He's got that part down. So, after the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother, the angel said, stay there until I tell you to return, because Herod's going to search for the child to kill him. Now we know that there was a decree that went out that Herod decreed that all the male babies under age 2 to be killed. So that sets up several questions about the wise men, the 3 kings, the Magi. Now, my first question about this seems rather simple, but I've never really heard it taught on. How many people saw that star? Let's say they came from Iraq, Iran, southern Turkey, northern Syria, wherever they came from. How many saw the star? Were they just this group, whether it was 3 or more? How many saw the star? I'm assuming because the galaxies and the universe also knew about the birth of Jesus, that all saw the star. But only a few responded. Have you ever thought about what it cost them to come? It cost them their time. Again, we don't know the exact timeline, but it could have been almost up to 2 years for them to get there. It cost them their convenience. It's not the easiest travel, the best conditions. All of us, if you've not traveled in the Middle East, and I've not been there, but I've seen plenty of videos, it's mainly desert, sand, some valleys with growth, very rugged mountains. Not easy travel. Not easy travel at all. It's not like, let's run over to a neighboring city and see what's going on. It cost them their rest, sleeping in the desert, because the travel would have been very slow. And one theologian that I heard speak on this one time brought out the fact that if they were men of substance and wealth, they probably had a type of camp that they set up every night, which would have made the traveling time even slower, because they would have had to allow time every evening to set up camp. It obviously cost them a portion of their possessions. The gifts that they brought were not cheap. And obviously there was enough gold that was going to take care of any monetary needs that Mary and Joseph would have in taking care of baby Jesus in their travel to Egypt and their time in Egypt. It put them in a place of where others would question them. Think about this. If your spouse came home and said, I saw a star, and I'm going to take off and follow that star. Well, how long are you going to be gone? I don't know. Who's going with you? I don't know. Why are you going? I just feel led to go. There would probably be lots of questions. Friends would be questioning you. Your family would be questioning you. You might even be questioning yourself. And as you would have been moving in expectation and faith toward what you believed that was of God, you would have found yourself in a potential danger traveling through the desert and through the mountains. Obviously, there were thieves that were there. There were elements of weather. We don't know what time of year it is. Is it cold? Is it in the middle of the summertime at 120 degrees Fahrenheit? We don't know. But surely there was snakes and scorpions and coyotes. And then once you arrive, King Herod's looking for you. The priests are upset with you. And here's something I thought of this week. If you have a new baby that you're entrusting to the Lord, and 3 strangers and their entourage show up at your house to see that baby, how do you react to them? Was it, oh, come on in and see baby Jesus? Or was it Joseph being a man and being a father and stepping up, whoa, who are you? Why are you here? Why are you coming here? Mary going, who's at the door, honey? What about their family that may have gathered? We don't know if they did or not. How would that family would have reacted? There's all possible conflicts that go into this little story that we see through. But whatever it was, they pushed everything to bring gifts and to be with the Lord. Now here's what I want you to see. I want you to draw a comparison between what they did and what we do. At Christmas time, we talk about Jesus is the reason for the season. We also see another little card that floats around with another wonderful little saying that wise men still seek Him. You've probably seen that. So how do we compare to the wise men who left whatever they were doing to make time to make a long trip, an uncomfortable trip, an expensive trip to bring gifts to a baby that they did not know, trusting what was in their heart and following a star to what we do today? Well, I tried to draw that contrast and that comparison in myself, and here's what I came up with in myself. That sometimes I have it all turned around. I want convenience. This morning when I walked in, it was cold, so I want heat. As it's warming up today, I probably will want air conditioning. Now, one of the things that I have found at our house is we need all the modern conveniences. Cindy and I are not on the same heating and cooling system or cycle. It's the same system. We were out, was it Christmas Eve, the day it was so cold and the wind was blowing? We were out, I'm all bundled up with a coat in the car, the heater running, and she has the side temperature on her side turned down to 60 and the air blowing in her face. Amen. That's what I said. And we joke all the time at church about the temperature. And I've always said this, if half the congregation is fanning and the other half are putting on their coats, the temperature is just right. If everybody's fanning, turn on the air conditioner. If everybody has their coats on, turn on the heater. Everybody works to a different thermostat. But I want the convenience of how I want it. If I'm really truthful, I like being given to. We enjoy giving, but we also enjoy being given to. Sad to say, I think, in the last 100 or so years of the American church at least, we have gotten away from some things of the church that the church itself is a place of honor, a place of worship, a place of giving, a place of sacrifice, a place of serving. Those are all things that the wise men did. And yet, we find ourselves sometimes comparing ourselves among ourselves, as Paul says. How do we compare to this church in this? And how do we compare to this church in this? And how do we compare with this? And how do we compare with this? And it's good to be in tune to what God's doing in the community. It's good to be in tune to the times we live in and the generations as the generations change. But it's not good when you're comparing yourself to outdo yourself. It should be about serving Him. As I say that, I think about at Christmas. Over the years, I've always had this thought that I wanted to make sure my gift was as good as anybody else's gift if I could. And sometimes those gifts couldn't be as good as somebody else's gift. And it always bothered me, but my gift wasn't as good as their gift because mine might have been a Dollar Tree gift and somebody else's might have been more expensive. But then you learn the true meaning that it is better to give than to receive, because it's the heart of what the giving that is important, not the amount. It's the relationship that is important and the value of the relationship that is important, not the amount. And the same thing is true with God. So what is it like being like the wise men? They were more than wise. They were some of our first examples of worshiping and serving Jesus. You know, there's a parallel, and I started to do it, but I'm going to speak on something different next Sunday. I started to draw a parallel between their serving and their giving and having sacrificed everything, and then what the 12 disciples did, and then what Jesus asked His followers to do. And then, where am I in that list? Because they really set the examples. They all saw the star, but only a few responded. And I have to ask myself this question when I look into the heavens and I feel God moving in my heart. Am I someone who watches, or am I someone who responds? It's really easy to sit and watch or hope others respond. One thing that 2020 has done through quarantining and trying to play it safe, we are probably doing a lot more watching than any of us has ever done. I have watched more church services throughout the nation and locally than I have ever done. Matter of fact, to be quite honest, it's really easy to get into the full battery remote control. And I say full battery because I like to channel surf and just switch from one to the other. Cindy watches me do it all the time. What appeases me? What music is grabbing my ear? What speaker is grabbing me? What speaker is preaching a message that I know that they have plagiarized or using the notes of someone else? And then I've learned that that's okay because there's really nothing new. God gives us all messages to speak, and it all comes from His Word. Well, what do I like about this style and not about this style? And I caught myself being in the same way of being a consumer pastor as well as a Christian, instead of seeking Him, serving Him. It's really easy to sit and watch, but it takes effort and inconvenience to respond. The wise men made a difference, unlike those who sat back and watched. The wise men contributed. The others sat back and watched and hoped someone would do something. Here's something else the wise men did. They followed the teaching of Jesus before they were even taught the teaching of Jesus. In Matthew and Mark in the Gospels it says, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give His life as a ransom for many." Are we really following Jesus' example? Are we really following what the wise men did? Or are we doing what appeases us? That's a difficult question. It's a difficult question. Many of you know that I like to watch Christian television. That's not everything I watch by any means, but I'll go through and I can tell you real quick which teachers I like and God uses to speak to me, and others that I think are just completely wacko. And I'm trying not to ever say anything derogatory about someone, because that might be the one that God's using to speak to someone that's speaking to me. And so I've learned that God uses all of us together. His expression of different gifts, talents, and abilities is totally different. The music is all over the place. The styles are all over the place. And yet in 2020, all of that got shook through a sifter right back down to the foundation of what's your reason and purpose for doing it. Many of you know I worked for a large ministry and early on before I met Cindy, and this was many, many years ago. It was a large budget. I will tell you this, the budget was well over $1 million a week, about $1.5 million a week. Think about that for a second. And I remember some very well-known, seasoned ministers came to visit the person that was leading this particular ministry. And they suggested that he needed to take some time off. And his response still rings in my ears today. He said, I can take time off, but the budget never takes time off. Well, things kind of went south after that. Wasn't too long after that, I heard another gentleman that had meant a lot to me in my life, and his name was Billy Graham, said, don't get so busy doing God's work that you forget to do God's ministry or His will. Sometimes we can get so busy doing things that have a form of godliness that we miss the whole picture. That doesn't mean we're wrong. Doesn't mean it's bad. But I think there are times that God uses it to cause us to reflect. I think that one of the things that 2020 has allowed us to do is what's really important. What's the main purpose? I have noticed even in my own teaching that perhaps there may be more directness, because it's time that we move out of the what about me into the what about Him. It's time that we move from I like it this way to what is it that He wants. What does that mean for the days that are ahead? I don't know, but I know in priority it's not about my will or my desire, it's about His will being done on the earth. It's about us hearing what God wants done and in doing it in our little part of the world that God helps us do. Another thing that's really interesting about 2020 is while we've seen in-person attendance do this, we've also seen online attendance do this. But we know that there's small audiences on at least 3 continents that watch us at least sometime during a month. I'm not going to say weekly, but at least monthly. Pastor John, that was here last year, they use many of our teachings for their midweek services and to go out into the villages. They record them. They put it either on a jump drive or a DVD and then take it out into the villages. So while we are looking at what's in here, God is looking at what's out there. It's a total different perspective, because I get excited when all these seats are full. Now we have to socially distance. I'm excited when I feel great synergy. But that doesn't change the commandment of the Lord to go and to preach the gospel. So like these wise men, they went against all the things that were probably traditional, probably against common sense, probably against advice, probably against all the conveniences. They probably weren't comfortable. Then all of a sudden they find out that they weren't as welcome as they thought they were going to be in Jerusalem. And King Herod's after them, as well as probably the priest. And now they still have to fulfill their mission to worship and to give to the King of Kings. Here's my call for myself. I want to be more like the wise men in 2021. Searching passionately, pursuing through the difficulties and the challenges. Not getting frustrated, but being drawn by a passion to be in His presence and to worship Him, whatever that looks like. And as long as I am in the presence of the King, doing what I feel like God has asked me to do, then God will take care of everything. Amen?